everyone was able to get something to eat. And we can try to finish out our agenda and get done by at least 1:30 or earlier, if time permits, and stay on schedule. Uh, Next up on our agenda, we have the first vice president replacement that will become vacant on January the 1st. The board does not meet again until February of 2021, and the position needs to be filled before January the 1st, so that the first vice president can assume the roles and the duty. In the Maryland Federation bylaws, Article 4, Section 4, it says vacancies. If a vacancy occurs in any elective office, excluding that of the president or first vice president, the board shall fill such vacancy for the remaining portion of the term. A vacancy in the office of president shall be filled by the first vice president for the remaining portion of the term, and a vacancy in the office of the first vice president shall be filled by the second vice president for the remaining portion of the term. The full board is the ex-com and the chapter presidents. As Dr. Sula will move up on January the 1st and become the president of the Maryland Federation, the second vice president, Ed Reed, has asked to remain as second vice and not move up to first vice for legislative director. That created an opening of the first vice. And we are here to fill that vacancy by a vote by the full board. The Maryland Secretary, Pat Farmer, sent out instructions to all members of the full board to send in a nominee or someone that they would nominate. 2 candidates were selected for that position of first vice. They sent in their resumes, and they were sent out by the Maryland Secretary, Pat Farmer, to all the full board to examine their bios, their resumes, and their qualifications. Steve will put up on the screen 2 candidates' names for each member to vote on whom they would like to fill the first vice president's position.
Okay. Let me launch that polling.
The 2 candidates selected nominated for the office were Dr. Bruce Fowler and Larry Walton, the special assistant to the president. These were the only 2 names that were submitted. And we are asking you to vote for which candidate you support. The one with the highest percentage will fill the vacancy of the first vice president.
Okay, and while we're voting, Virginia Bender has her hand raised. So Virginia, did you have a question related to this or something that was said? Virginia, if you want to unmute yourself.
Hi, I have a lot of background noise and I can barely understand what anybody's saying. How do I fix that? Do I have to leave and come back in?
I think so, because Gary and Pat, are you getting any background noise on your end?
No,
Not on my end.
Okay, yeah, so Virginia, and this is not just for you, Virginia, it's for everybody. Sometimes the best first course of action is just doing exactly what you said. Just log back in again and you should be good.
Well, now you're speaking clearly.
Oh, okay.
Can Dr. Roundtree speak again, please?
Yes, can you hear me, Virginia?
Yeah, now it's better. Thank you. Whatever
Okay.
happened, it just unhappened.
All right.
You
Good.
can mute me again, please,
Okay.
Mr. Grant.
Dr. Gary, I
Yes,
have 2 proxy votes. How do you want me to handle those?
forward them on to Steve. And he can add them in. At the executive committee meeting yesterday, the committee voted that proxies would be accepted for chapter presidents.
How do I get to Steve without going through everybody?
Oh, you mean giving it to me
Yeah,
to add? Let's see. Oh, you can send me a private, you can send me a private message through chat, I think. Or you could send it to me via email, maybe,
okay, I'll do that.
or text, or carrier pigeon.
Don't have any of those around right now.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So I would just send that to me via email.
I got to figure out how to get back to my email.
Okay. Let's see. So it looks like we've got 33 votes so far, and then the 2 that Pat. 35 votes and the 2 that Pat had given us. Does that, what should be the total number of people voting?
I think it's 26 chapter
20
presidents.
Chapters.
And then there's the 5 elected.
I'm not sure how to get back to my email.
5 elected officers for the executive committee and past presidents.
Okay. Does that help, Pat, when I stop sharing my screen?
I'm trying to get back to my email. I'm gonna just reply. I'm gonna reply to one of your previous messages.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Steve,
Yeah.
this is Larry Walton. We got to make sure only presidents vote and board of directors.
Yeah, you might have, we're up to 37 votes. Do you want me to?
That's
That's-
too many.
That's
Okay.
that's not
So
correct.
Let me end this polling, okay? I'm gonna end the polling. And I'm gonna relaunch it. And Gary and Larry clearly state, like, who is allowed to vote on this?
The
Go ahead.
executive committee only, no chairs, and chapter presidents.
Okay. All right, so I'm relaunching this. Whoops.
If you are not a member of the executive committee or a chapter president, you are not allowed to vote, because only the executive committee members and chapter presidents make up the full executive board.
Okay, so everybody hear that. This vote is not for everybody. And then Pat, you can send me.
I just sent you the email.
Okay, I got it. And so I've got the 2 proxy votes that I can add to the total. And
And see, Steve, an acting president can vote. a chapter president, an acting chapter president can vote.
There,
Okay,
also, Steve, there's probably, Paul Hudez is on the phone, and he should be voting for Marcia Swanson.
okay. Okay. Okay, I don't. Okay, let's see. All right, so I got those two proxies. All right, and then, okay, so that's, we'll let this go for another 30 seconds. We got 21, 22, 23 votes, which I think it's definitely a majority. So folks, if you're qualified to vote for this, just make sure that you vote in the next 10 seconds or so. And then, Gary and Pat, is this a vote that you want me to, when I end the polling, do you want me to make it public to everyone? It doesn't include the two proxy votes, but I can verbally add those on.
Yes, for transparency, yes.
Okay, so we've had this open for 2.5 minutes. I'm ending the polling. I'm sharing the results. And there is 2 additional proxy votes for Larry Walton. So based on this, Larry Walton would be the winning candidate.
All right.
And then let
All
me,
right. We got to close the polling.
okay. All right, stop. I'm stopping that share. Okay, and then we do have 2 hands raised. Let me allow, first is Jerry Phillips. Jerry? Jerry, if you want to unmute yourself. Okay, let's see. Or we've also got Lois. Oh, no hands are being raised. Okay,
All right.
okay,
The election percentages have been shared with all those that were qualified to vote. And the election winner is Larry Walton, who's been chosen to fill the term of the open vacancy of the first vice president, which will only, I think, will be about 3 or 4 months, because election for new officers also take place in 2021 before the biannual conference. And so all candidates will have to rerun for office in 2021, I think around April, before the biannual conference, to serve a complete term. So this completes our election results. The election results will also be in the minutes that are being recorded by Pat Farmer or the Assistant Secretary, Virginia Bender. And so this concludes our election, and congratulations, Mr. Larry Walton. Next up on our agenda will be the Resolutions and Bylaw Committee report. And Larry Lang will be giving the report. Sarah Richards and Larry Lang co-chair the Resolutions Committee.
okay. Who, oh, sorry,
Larry Lang.
Larry Lang, okay. All right, promoted Larry Lang to panelist, so You should be popping up here pretty soon. Larry,
Okay.
all right, Larry, can we hear it?
Is that good, Steve?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, and I keep clicking on start my video. Oops, wait a minute.
Yeah, it seems to be turning on and off. So I would just go audio.
Okay, I think it's
Oh,
on
there you
now.
are now. You
Well, I
got it.
had to click it about 5 times, so.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, I will certainly make this short. I think everybody remembers the voting on both, from last summer, it was July, if I'm not mistaken, on the Maryland Federation's proposal to change its bylaws and on the national bylaws. The Maryland Federation's proposals to change its bylaws were they were relatively minor. It was mostly language to clarify some of the bylaws and make them more understandable. They resulted in all the proposals being approved. The national bylaws, that letter, I think that Dr. Gary sent out last July, gave the recommendations on each of the national bylaws changes. And the Maryland Federation choices. There were 22 proposals to change the national bylaws. 13 resulted in acceptance of the Maryland Federation recommendations. I'll just quickly go through them. Federation lost by a small number of votes on its proposal to institute standards for development of fair and unbiased ballots. Federation also lost its bid to keep national dues at the current rate, so they will now be $48 national dues. The other two other proposals the Federation recommended for rejection were unfortunately approved, reducing fees to chapters for new members and allowing regions to be merged without the region's consent. Two good wins for our Federation were that it helped stop the cut in funds to the federations and helped eliminate the detailed job duties of the executive director from the bylaws. So the deadline to get submissions to the Federal Resolutions Committee for changing the Maryland Federation bylaws is this coming March 1st of 2021. I will also, I found it very helpful. I get, like so many of us do, emails from National NARFE. And I got a NARFE communications email dated September 30th. And it had the link to the September-October issue of NARFE Insider. And if one goes to that, there is a second link for the 2020 NARFE election page. And it gave a rundown, which was extremely helpful. It just gave like a one sentence of what each proposal to change the national bylaws was and whether it was rejected or adopted. Also, at the bottom of that, there was an interesting, I guess one could classify it, I should say, proposal by the National Executive Board, NEB1. And I think Dr. Gary's made reference to this, but that was adopted. And that proposal was to cut RVP salaries, or regional vice president salaries, by 50% and no COLA for the entire NEB effective November 1st of 2022. So next on the agenda is to vote on the Maryland bylaws document, if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Gary. I don't know if
Yes.
anybody may have any questions.
Are there any questions before the vote takes place on the report given by Larry Lang,
And Sarah,
and Sarah Richards?
right, and Sarah Richards, right, thank you.
All right. So just raise your hand or type into Q&A. Oh, got a hand raised here. Looks like Frank Lee.
Big surprise.
Frank? Hey, Frank.
Yeah,
Frank, you should be able to talk. Okay. Frank?
Comes, he comes and goes, I think.
Okay.
Can he type his question?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Frank, are you saying something?
Can you repeat, please? What is it I need to do? What are you asking me to
We
do?
can hear you, Frank.
Excuse me?
We can hear you.
Okay,
What is your question, Frank, please?
what are we voting on again?
We're voting on the approval of the bylaw document.
Maryland Federation bylaws document.
Okay, did you want me to vote by voice or this could be a vote by polling? Well, how are we doing it?
I think we're doing it as
Wait,
polling.
Polling.
Yeah, by polling.
Okay, fine.
It's my, if I may add one small thing, it's my understanding that Dr. Gary has submitted these bylaws to the national headquarters for approval. And he's having trouble getting through to them. Is that right, Dr. Gary?
Yes.
Right.
I sent the National Secretary correspondence on where would she like me to send it, mail it, or email it to her directly to her direct national email, because she has 2 emails. And she has not responded back to me yet. So I'm gonna have to call her up to see where does she want me to send these documents to, that she will, because she doesn't have staff anymore.
Right, because of COVID.
Mhm. So in reference to Frank's question, we're going to vote to accept the documents or not.
Okay. And is this going to be everybody on the call, or everybody can vote on this?
Everybody can vote on this.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to launch this poll.
Because any changes to the bylaws require all members of the Maryland Federation to vote to amend the bylaws.
Okay.
Steve should have up there on the screen.
Yep. And
We have had these posted on our website for some time, and they are still posted up on our website. Louise and Jaquita have received and tallied up all of the votes on the percentages, and they were forwarded on to Sarah Richards, Larry Lang, Pat, and me.
all right. Looks like we're at about 60% of people on the call have voted. And I'll just let it go for 15 more seconds. So if you want to get your vote in, please click on the screen. And got about 10 more seconds in the voting. All right, looks like we've got 58% of everybody on the call has voted. And these are the results.
Oh,
All right.
excellent.
Voting is now closed, and we have a 98% approval. Documents are approved.
Excellent.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Moving on with our agenda, the time is now 1:05. We're next up is our membership report from our membership director, Second Vice President Ed Reed.
Okay. All right, I'm bringing Ed over. Okay, bringing Ed over there. Here comes Ed. So Ed, looks like you're unmuted.
Can you hear me now?
Yep. Whoops, now you're muted again, Ed. Oh, no, you're muted. Here, unmute.
There you go.
How about now?
Yeah.
Yep, now you're good. You're good.
Good now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay. Are you ready for the report?
Yes.
All right, we're good.
Okay, this is the membership report. Ed Reed, member, Federation's second vice president and membership director. Please note to all, my report today is a shortened one. It will be included in your minutes of today's meeting, so no need to take notes. I only wish to remind all that complete details of this year's NARFE National Recruiting Campaign have been sent electronically to all our Maryland Federation, national only, and chapter members with email have received it all. Also, each of our 26 chapters have been sent a packet with 15 F-135 National NARFE applications, 15 Maryland Federation trifold inserts, as well as complete campaign dates, prizes, drawings, and our 2020 emphasis. Note this, please. To safely recruit remotely are the key words. I'll say again, to safely recruit remotely, to minimize any risk of exposure to COVID-19, and announcing our Maryland Federation top prize, $75 to our top recruiter. This will be announced in the spring Federation newsletter. I will personally contact the director downtown for NARFE recruiting and have him send a complete list so that we can decide on who our top recruiter was. If there's a tie, it'll be $50. Hopefully, no tie. And hopefully all in our federation will use email, Twitter, Facebook, and something new to me, eBlast, BLASTS, whatever that is, to seek out prospective new NARFE members. In closing, my personal comment, as usual at all our Federation board meetings, I encourage all NARFE members, not just chapter presidents, but all our NARFE members to give your USPS or your mail delivery person a sample copy of an application. If you don't have an F-135, look at your last magazine. There's always a paper copy in the magazine for applications. Remind them of how important NARFE is to their career. Remember, anyone can go online also to our narfe.org and click on the quote join link. Or you may call the 800 number, which I'm sure is the same as in the front of the magazine, 800-456-8410 for additional details on NARFE. Let's all help NARFE grow. Good luck to all. And again, I remind you, this will all be in the minutes. Thank you.
Mhm. Are there any questions for our second vice president, Ed Reed, of membership?
All right.
Pat Farmer did send out, national headquarters, sent us a new elevator speech, for recruitment. I think that was sent out last month sometime in September to all XCOM and chapter presidents. Please share that with the members in your chapter through the AMS system. You have access to it as chapter president and certain officers. You can share that with members that do plan to recruit during the incentive period of September the 1st to December the 31st, 2020, for recruitment of NARFE. Recruitment is key to the survival of NARFE. Recruitment is key to the survival of leadership for NARFE. As we that are retired get older, we have to think of the next generation of retirees and active feds carrying NARFE through for another 100 years. So are there any questions for the Second Vice President, Ed Reed?
Dr. Gary, this is Pat. Can I just
Yes, Pat.
just clarify that the elevator speech went out with the AMS or the EMS electronic mailing that I sent to every member of the Maryland Federation and to the national only members in Maryland.
That's wonderful.
That was I sent out that elevator speech, the application and the brochure, the Maryland brochure.
Yes. And please keep the Federation in communications with how your chapter is doing as far as recruitment of your membership chair. I know some chapters have membership chair and some chapters don't. But please let the Federation know whether your chapter has a membership chairperson. We would like to know that so that that information can be shared with the Second Vice President of Membership, Ed Reed. Are there any more questions?
Don't have any, no questions or hands raised.
All right. All right, we'll keep it moving then. Moving on. Next up is our first Vice President and Legislative Director, Dr. Suda Haley.
Okay.
And she will take over and call up her staff and team under the legislative.
Okay. Bear with me here. Ooh, let's see. If
Ed, she's under Bruce Fowler.
oh, Bruce.
She's with Bruce Fowler, remember?
Oh, yep, that's right. I forgot. Okay. So got her on board. Okay. So they should be coming on here. Huh. Okay.
Set up.
Vote to panelists. Okay, so. All right, Dr. Suda and Bruce Fowler, you should be coming over as a panelist. Yeah, there you go.
There. Yep. I see.
Okay, there you go.
Bruce.
Okay.
There.
All right.
I can see everybody.
You got it?
You got me?
Yep.
You can see you.
Good, okay. All right, just to let you know that, and thank you, Dr. Gary, for that vote of confidence. I look forward to it in January. The legislative priorities are the same, and we've been talking to headquarters and making sure that we do all of our phone calls and our emails and everything else with it. And the first one, of course, is still the elimination of the reform penalties of the government pension offset, the GPO, and the windfall elimination provisions, the WEP. And what we're trying to do is to force a House vote on HR 141 So we have so far 257 co-sponsors, and we need 290. So if you have any friends across the aisle who you can change, and especially those in the District 1 of Maryland, if you can change and ask our representative, Harris, to please be a co-sponsor for this, we might get it through. Okay, and the second one that we are supporting is the Fair COLAs for Seniors Act, HR 153, and supporting also the Equal COLA Act, HR 1254. These will determine, of course, our cost of living adjustments on the Consumer Price Index, and we've been really working on this for several years, as you remember. It's for the consumer price, so that instead of the CPIW, they look at the CPIE. And then the other part of it is to equalize the COLAs among the CSRS and the FERS. And then the third, of course, is our most important one, the postal reform. And this has been in the news so much, and we really, really want you to talk to our representatives and any others you know across the aisle about postal reform, to repeal the pre-funding mandate and oppose the required current and future retirees to enroll in Medicare Part B or forfeit the FEHB. So these are the main ones that we've been talking about, and we've been able to get to our lawmakers and our senators and our congressmen. Now, I'm going to go on to talk about the PAC because it kind of goes in it, Dr. Gary, and then after that, Dr. Fowler will talk about the FLC. Mainly about the PAC, we are so excited that our contributions have led up to $96,665. And that is from chapters alone. From nationals also, we've added another $42,303.98. So you see, we contribute very heavily, but then the Ross Apter, the headquarters, and others do give to our lawmakers. For instance, now we have given Congressman Anthony Brown $8,000 last year, Steny Hoyer $10,000, Elijah Cummings, and now Congressman Mfume, 1,000 and 3,000 before that, and Jamie Raskin, 10,000. And then of course, for the PACs, for Ben Cardin, 5,000, and Senator Chris Van Hollen, 7,500. So we have been giving, of course, also to that Ruppersberg, 1,000, and to the others in there. But mainly we want to make sure that we keep contributing as generously as we have before. So if you have any questions on the legislative agenda that we have or the PAC, you can ask me now, or you can always email me and ask me. And before I leave you, I really, really want to thank you for all you have done in your newsletters and other areas where you have let people know that the census is so important to us, and that every child, every person, a human being who is on the United States resident, it has to be counted. $1,800 per person have to come. Each one will be brought into Maryland, and we need it for our seniors, our veterans, and many, many other services. So thank you so much for everything that you have done for this purpose. I salute you. Okay, any questions?
Yeah, we got Stuart Sklam has a question. Stuart?
Yes, Stuart.
Everybody, there he goes.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
I can hear you.
Okay. You addressed the COLAs and two pieces of legislation to be considered. I just checked the tracking report in the NARFE magazine, and neither of those are in there. You might want to check with Jessica and find out what, because that's very, very important.
It's very important to us also. And you will find on the October magazine, page 35 for the senators and page 40 in the magazine for the congressmen and how they have voted in them. And yes, because they're not there at this moment, but that is top of our agenda. Even
Okay,
with,
thank you.
yes. Any other questions?
That looks like it.
Very good. Thank you very much, everybody. I look forward to being with you soon.
Thanks, Sula.
Mm. All right, so what's up next, Gary?
Dr. Sula supposed to call up Bruce Fowler.
Okay, Bruce Fowler's here, president and accounted for. Basically, Sudha mentioned a couple of these calls. We've had 2 conference calls with Marcia Goad and Ross Apter regarding the things that she just mentioned to you. More or less what I've been doing is focused on looking ahead and trying to expand our reach in further in the region. And so that means trying to get to people in North Carolina and Georgia, and trying to get them on board as part of the profiles in civil service. So we haven't done anything with those 2 people in those states yet, but they have, I think, are aware of the profiles. And the feedback we've gotten is that, you know, those were well received. Really, it's about telling our stories, and we'd like to include these people, and this will undoubtedly be done with the electronic flip book. We can't hike these things around Capitol Hill much anymore. The paper gets heavy. They make it out of trees, you know. And I think the other thing we want to do is try to get the Postal Service folks engaged in this. We have several of the profiles of postal employees in the golden edition of the profiles, but these are not, they're just 2 of them, and they're not very, what would I say this, inspiring. So what we want to do is go to, I'm going to hold up a copy of this if you can see this. These are what the profiles look like for those of you who haven't seen it before. And we have this as a flip book. What's in here are Maryland, Virginia, Pennsylvania, and the district. So what we're talking about doing is expanding this out to North Carolina and Georgia. One of the reasons for doing those 2 states is that both of those have a chance of turning some of their delegation to the blue side of the aisle. And so that anything we would send to them would be hopefully well received. That's the purpose of it. I think the federal employees, as you may know, are underappreciated, and particularly right now, the Postal Service employees. We particularly would like to highlight them because these folks do much more than just deliver mail. They provide eyes on the communities. They are in the communities every day, or every day but Sunday. And this is, they perform a vital service. And if in fact we are able to vote by mail, they become critical. So I'm not gonna, kind of beat on that, but I want you to think about it. But nonetheless, the idea going forward is to expand the reach of NARFE on the Eastern Seaboard and see if we can get some more leverage in terms of friendly folks on Capitol Hill that way. End of sermon.
Any questions for Dr. Bruce Fowler?
Let's see, we've got, okay, Carlene Hagan. What was the bill number needing District 1 support? It was about offsets, I think.
The web.
Mhm.
What was the bill number?
It was HR 141.
Yes, HR 141, which has just 257 co-sponsors and needs 290. HR 141.
Okay, I typed that into the Q&A. I don't
got
see any hands raised or any additional questions.
Let me raise a question. I got a question. Mhm.
I think our people, in Maryland, have all supported.
Yes.
Harris.
Hey, Dr. Bruce,
Yeah.
I read in email on news that the postal employees were not going to be implemented with that tax deferral.
That's true.
That agency was not going to institute where they defer their federal tax. Had you heard anything latest on that?
No, I have not. I have not.
Because I think OPM was saying that federal employees did not have an option to option out of that deferred tax.
I don't know. I think what this is going to take a little research. Maybe Marcia or one of the other folks in the main office would know that, but I don't have that information.
All right, because when it says tax deferred, it means that they'll defer it for a couple months, and later on you're going to have to pay it, to pay the money back.
Yeah.
That was an executive order signed by the president.
You know who? Yeah, I do. Well, I mean, this is again the sort of thing that the reason that we need to tell our stories. We need to make the American people and the people in Congress and the president appreciate all the things, all the good things that the federal employees do every day. And I think, the Postal Service, as I said, the employees are a classic example. They're quietly doing their jobs. They're critical in terms of bills, medicines, voting, and they're getting abused. I'll put it like that. So we need to see if we can turn this around.
I got one last question, Dr. Bruce, then I'll finish my question. Why hasn't NARFE, well, I can direct this to the regional RVP, and I guess I can address it to the board when the board reconvenes. November 11th is Veterans Day. Why hasn't some legislative of ours presented legislation for a federal civil service holiday of federal employees who serve in many positions appointed in career services? That legislation has never been introduced.
Can I talk?
Yeah, go ahead. Do it.
This is Sudha. Sir, whenever we come across something like this, I think what we need to do is gather a coalition and then have us as a coalition submit it to our lawmakers. And I think something like this is timely. So
Yeah.
if our NARFE can start this movement, then definitely. For instance, we are now looking at having another center in Calvert County in Maryland. Hopefully they will have one there. So we are really looking at our veterans now who deserve everything that we can possibly give them for their service and their sacrifice. Yes, we will work on this then, sir. Thank you very much for bringing it up.
Yeah, because our veterans make up a large group of retirees
Yes.
in federal service through the Merit Board Protection System in Title 38, where veterans get first preference on hiring. I think a lot of bills were passed called the Hire Heroes Act in state legislation, and also executive orders were about hiring veterans first. They get 5 points or 10 points, depending on what test that the job qualifications required. And so a lot of feds are veterans.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions for Dr. Bruce Fowler and Dr. Suda?
I think
All right. Dr. Suda, would you introduce your state legislative chairperson?
All right. Since
I was
we're all
just doing it-
doctors, yesterday.
I was doing it the same way.
Yesterday, Yesterday,
When we have
at our
our in-person
meeting,
board, you would
we
introduce.
said, well, now, Dr. Paul Schwartz will follow us.
Dr. Paul Schwartz.
No, you don't need to because he's a mega media mogul. And now I will introduce our next speaker, Paul Schwartz, our state legislative leader. Thank you.
And Paul should be coming on board. Paul, you can unmute yourself. There you go. Make sure you unmute yourself.
Yeah, yes.
There you go.
I'm good to go now. What I wanted to focus on is that we did complete the 2021 version of the state legislative pamphlet, and it's online. You can access it at the Maryland NARFE website. You go to the upper right-hand corner and you hit where it says state legislation, and then you'll get the pamphlet. And it reflects a lot of what we had last year, which focused on tax relief. It added some additional things, which I'll go over in a little bit, but I want to focus on the tax relief, why we are still on this issue. And this issue should be important to our members, tax relief, but if it's not important to our members, it's not going to be important to the state legislators. What is the obstacle? The obstacle is the fiscal note, and we tried to address this. The fiscal note was taken from the same fiscal note from several years ago and placed on getting the decoupling so that you could take the standard on federal and still itemize on the state return. That's decoupling. Right now, if you itemize on one, you have to itemize on both. Standard on one, standard on both. We want to decouple. The fiscal note places, and this is the obstacle, a price tag of $115 million. How did they come up with this? That is what we took them to task on, because the way they came up with it is that based on their review, after the federal tax plan went into effect, 690,000 state of Maryland taxpayers went from the itemized deductions on their state returns to taking the standard deduction on the state return. There were two reasons for this. One was because now the standard at the federal level was increased. But the other reason is because they eliminated in the federal tax plan many of the deductions that ordinarily were taken before the federal tax plan went into effect. What the fiscal note reflects is that they said that all 690,000 taxpayers would jump back if we decoupled, would jump back to itemizing on the state return. That, of course, is ridiculous on its face, because if you eliminated the deductions, it means that they couldn't take the deductions. So why would they jump back to itemizing? There are some taxpayers who itemized before the tax plan and would still itemize now, and that won't change. The only problem is because they don't allow decoupling, they can't take advantage of the increased standard deduction at the federal level. And that is who we're fighting for, because they are being harmed for no reason. So where do we stand with this? We pointed this logic out, this reasoning out, to the person who wrote the fiscal note. What is it going to take for us to have some success on this? It's going to have to take a change in the fiscal note. So we also provided the logic with Adrienne Jones and her chief of staff, so that they committed that when the next fiscal note is written, it would take our arguments into consideration. That's great if there is a fiscal note. There'll only be a fiscal note if there is a bill. And right now, there's no guarantee that there's going to be a bill. And unless we keep the issue alive, there won't be, because you won't have a new fiscal note if there's no bill. Part of the problem is that Serafini, the senator, Republican senator, who sponsored the bill the last 2 years, he's out of the Senate. The person who did the on the House of Delegates bill, he is still around. So we provided him with the information. We also contacted or in the process of contacting, in addition to Bill Wyvell from the House of Delegates, Senator Brian Feldman, who co-sponsored the bill at the Senate level with Serafini, hoping he would reintroduce the bill based on the fact that we're trying to provide the logic as to why that fiscal note, again, which is the only obstacle to getting decoupling passed, is not going to happen unless that fiscal note is changed. So we're right now, people are giving up because it's been several years now we're trying to get this point across. So we hope, though, that at least they try one more time. And so we're relying on Feldman and Wyvell. But to those people who are listening to me now, if you have any contact with your legislators, try to explain this. You'll get the information from the pamphlet about what we want and why we want it. And that's what we're working on. So that's the one issue. We also added into the pamphlet, which is going to be distributed online to the legislators, some additional issues. One was lowering the prescription drug prices. That is a good issue, although in my personal case, and I assume I'm in the same situation as many of the people listening to this this harangue that I'm giving, is that I paid $5 because of the Federal Employees Health Benefits Program, my coverage at Blue Cross Blue Shield. I paid $5 for a 3-month supply of my Lipitor. I assume most of you are in the same boat as former feds, but it's still an issue that's hot, and we want to join in on that because whoever does need the lower pricing on the prescription drugs, we want to support that. But to me, that is not directly as big an issue as the tax relief that I know all of us would like to see. Broadband expansion is another issue, and infrastructure, because we're all impacted by that. So where do we stand with this? Well, when there's a bill, we will then join forces with any of the other groups, whether it's the veterans, whether it's AARP, or whether it's any of these other groups. We'll join forces with them to support these causes. But without a bill, there's nothing to support. And that is the end of my speech. Any questions?
Let's see. That was very thorough. So I don't know if you left room for questions, but no hands are raised and no questions in the box.
Oh, excellent. Either no one was listening or it was so great that there was no reason to ask a question. I hope it's the latter. And now I want to turn it over to my sidekick, Bob Doyle, who will provide, if he's on, will provide some information on the Maryland PAC.
I also spoke too soon. A hand went up.
Okay.
Charles Thomas. Charles.
Excellent report. I have no objections. I just want to point out that while we are protected somewhat by these increases in drug prices, we shouldn't kid ourselves that it doesn't affect us, because the rates we're paying for our insurance are going to go up whenever the prices for prescriptions go up.
Good point.
That's all I want to say. Thank you.
No, that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that in.
Yes. And our Congressman, David Trone, District 6, has held a lowering prescription drug prices forum with different organizations, including ARP, which Legislative Director Dr. Suda Haley serves on their executive board, and Larry Walton at ARP have been, organizations participated in that forum on lowering prescription drugs for civil service employees and the federal community. And broadband means that there are rural areas like Cumberland, up 70, about 40 miles past Hagerstown, that don't have internet or broadband up there in those wooded areas like that. And so making that accessible is a good thing for the federal community. That's all I have to state, Paul, just a statement.
Yeah, no, these are good causes. That's why we want to include it in the legislative agenda for us. But we didn't want to let go of the tax relief because we feel that's still a main one. We also, I forgot to mention, we included the long-term care tax incentives because that, even though that's been going on for over 8 years, we still feel it's a legitimate issue, and we don't want anyone in the legislature to lose sight of it, whether they pass it or not.
Has the Senate president, the new one, Bill, his name is Bill Ferguson, right?
Yes.
Because we have a Bill Ferguson too, right?
Yeah, we wish that it was the same one, but it's not.
Yeah, all right. Has he acknowledged in prior attended fundraisers before the pandemic, any way he's leaning in the Senate on any key issues that we have proposed? Because I know some of our legislative committees have talked to him at fundraisers, haven't we?
Yeah.
Before the pandemic.
Steve Groom spoke to him, and the issue is, it's not, I don't want to give the impression that like Democrats are against and Republicans are for, or vice versa. It's the issue of the fiscal note. And as long as that fiscal note shows a price tag of 150 million, Bill Ferguson is not going to support it. If we could get a more realistic price tag that reflects the true cost of that decoupling, which is minimal compared to 115 million, then we have a chance. But right now, it's my word against the guy who wrote the fiscal note, and they're not going to go against that guy. And that's why I tried to work with that guy and get the arguments across to him to at least revise the fiscal note to something that's more realistic. And
who's that guy?
Robert Rehrman. But again, there's not going to be a fiscal note unless there's a bill. So that's why we're trying to get across Brian Feldman and Bill Wyvell to reintroduce the bills from last year so that then there will be a new fiscal note. And that's when Adrian Jones's assistant she had committed that at least our arguments would be considered in the next fiscal note. But without a bill, there won't be a next fiscal note. So we're trying to tie all this together. Whether we pull it off or not remains to be seen, but that's the challenge.
What NARFE chapters are in Bill Freeman's district?
Bill Ferguson?
No, Bill Freeman is the one that we need for legislation. We need him to submit that legislation.
Brian Feldman.
Feldman.
Yes, Brian Feldman. I have to check. I think, actually, I think it was Bob Goldberg was in contact with him. Mm-hmm. So between the letter that we sent and Bob Goldberg, will make the contact.
All right. All right. And what can we do at the federation level to help the cause move forward? What can we do as the federation?
Encourage all of our membership to contact their legislators to tell them that they still want decoupling. That's the key word. We're not looking for changes in the taxes to give us more money at this point, just not to punish us without the decoupling. So that's the key, that we want the decoupling, and they have to contact their legislators to consider passing the bill from last year, which was 788 and I think 906 in the Senate, to pass those bills. So getting the grassroots contact to the legislators that we still support decoupling, that's critical.
And last question, Paul, what other states have already passed legislation to deal with the decoupling? Ed Bice, if you're still on, I think you had indicated that Virginia did. I don't remember what the other states did, but I think Virginia did something to that effect. Mm-hmm. Where you don't have to neighboring state.
You can itemize on one and take the standard on the other. Mm-hmm. And that's just a question of fairness. Why should you not be able to do that if it's your benefit?
All right. Thank you there, Dr. Paul.
All right. So I'm going to hand it over to my other bearded compatriot, Bob Doyle, on the MD PAC money.
all
Hi,
yours.
thanks, Paul. Hello, everyone. I'll give you the quick report on Maryland PAC, and Dr. Haley showed they had a plethora of funds coming in for the NARFE PAC, not so much for us though. But first, let me say one thing. I want to say thanks to Dave Roseman. I don't think he's here today. He didn't check in earlier today, but Dave Roseman was the Maryland PAC treasurer for I think since its inception in the 2007, 2008. So thank you for all the work that he did to Dave Roseman over that time. Just quickly, we have a balance as of September 30. It's of $1,800, and that's a pretty good amount. But we do have a problem right now. Our biggest fundraiser days was always meetings where we had a table set up, everybody remembers, and people would come by and contribute. Since that's not happening anymore, this is a problem. So I'm going to try to get something out to the chapter newsletter editors. I'd like the newsletters to start putting a little block ad every issue to talk about the Maryland PAC and what you can do for us, how you can contribute, where you need to send your contribution, and so on. So that'll be something we'll talk about that some more at our XLC meeting, which is coming up. Yeah, and I look back at the records that Dave Roseman gave me all the records for all these years, and we have I call it a small but very committed group of contributors over the years, the same folks year after year, very faithful contributor to the Maryland PAC. So we do need to not only keep those folks efforts going, but get new folks as well. Any questions?
Oh, let's see. Well, yes, we do have one hand raised, and then also Catherine McCamish says, where do we find the pamphlet Dr. Schwartzman mentioned?
Yeah,
but it looks,
if you go to the Federation website, all right, the Maryland NARFE website, in the upper right-hand corner, there'll be an icon for state legislation. You hit that, and then you'll get the state legislation page, which includes the pamphlet.
I've heard
It
them
was just
talk.
posted by Flash, and I want to thank Flash for doing that.
Flash is on the air.
Okay.
Hi, good talk, Bob. I would like, it's come up in my financial software that it's time to send a check to MD PAC. Where do I send it?
It's a new address, which is my address. I'll give it to you right now, and we'll post it somehow. Bob Doyle, 4226 Carvel Lane. It's Carvel, like the old ice cream cake guy, if you guys remember that. Edgewater, Maryland, 21037.
Thank you.
27. Okay, I just put that into chat, and that's Bob Doyle.
Thanks, Steve.
All right. All right, that was Flash. And I think we got through it, guys.
All right.
Oh, can I add? Let me add. I forgot. A check should be made out to Maryland PAC, not me. Maryland PAC, PAC.
Yeah.
And as, in fact, and actually, now that I think about this, we'll get into this more when we tell people about this. But you need to give your name and address, and also your occupation, the contributor's occupation, or retired for the usually what's what the answer is, because the Maryland State Board of Elections does require any PAC, us and any other PAC in the state, to report at least annually, and we have to report all the contributions that we get and who they're from.
Great.
Bob, this is Gary here. Is there a way to
Yeah.
set up monthly contributions to the Maryland PAC as we do with the national PAC?
Gary, I don't know. Let me look into that with, we use PNC Bank. Let me check that out. That's a great idea.
All right. Because most of our members don't know that the Maryland PAC is vital to the success of us getting legislation that benefits retirees and current federal employees at the state government level. And it does cost money to go to those, when things get back to normal, we get requests from our elected local and state government officials to attend their fundraisers, and some of them are not cheap, you know, and so $1,800 is not enough to last throughout all the fundraiser invitations that come in from our elected officials to Bob Dole and Paul Swartz. And so please, every member that's listening now, please consider making a donation to the Maryland PAC. Thank you. All right. If there are no more questions for our Maryland PAC Chairman Bob Dole, we will move on to new business. Any new business?
Do we install them already?
Any new business?
Dr. Gary,
Yes, Pat.
are you going to do the installation of the new president?
No, I talked to Dr. Soda. It will happen next year
Okay,
at the February board meeting.
okay.
Good.
Let's see, Stuart Sklam has his hand raised. Stuart?
I had the same question as Pat. So retract my question.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right.
Almost there.
Almost. Well, let me get my stuff together then.
Pick up your old bag.
Pick up.
All right. Anything for new business? Saying none? Anything for the good of the order, good of the Federation? Anything you want to share for the good of the Federation? Going once, going twice, going three? Anything for the good of the Federation? Hearing none? We will now have the benediction by our chaplain, Larry Lang.
Okay, I'll wait for Steve to get me.
There you go.
Okay. This takes
Yeah.
takes multiple clicks on my 6-year-old computer. So. Hey, we all look back on the entire day's proceedings that we came together to work together, to learn from and benefit from our being with our fellow NARFE members. May we leave today invigorated by the crisp fall weather and by our Federation leaders who are working for us and with our assistance to protect and maintain our earned federal employment and retirement benefits. We all look forward to the next time we come together to work for our Maryland Federation. I'd like to close with the way Lester Holt closes his evening news program every night. Please stay safe and take care of yourselves and each other. Thank you.
Thank you. As the Maryland Federation President, I now declare this October the 5th Maryland Federation Board meeting adjourned.
Gary, are we still gonna have a meeting with P.H. Jeffries, Ed Holland, myself and you and Pat Farmer?
Yes. And also I will be reaching out to Kathy Swabs and I don't want to pronounce her name wrong. Does anyone remember Brigitta? Who's Steve?
Brigida.
Brigida. After this, I will give them a call by phone. All right, the meeting is adjourned.
Gary, Stu,
Sure.
thanks